One of the first things that when I started to get really kind of, I felt I was being punked. I felt that I was being screwed with because here I am as a Western director that's coming over to this country making a movie there. I felt that maybe they were screwing with me. So I had a lot of documents pulled around the area and to try to find out the ownership of the house. It sat empty for a long time before we went in there, and it was rented out. There was a lot of things that people would rent it out for events, but it looked like Eyes Wide Shut party, but all the beds in the place were facing east. The candles were put up in a very ritualistic way.
Why is that important, facing east?
Well, I mean, getting into esoteric traditions, I mean, a lot of things have to do with direction things. I mean, if you look into Freemasonry, where they're built, which way they're facing. So inside the house, though, which is kind of incomprehensible to explain, I think the Winchester Mystery House might be the best comparison. There were staircases that went nowhere, but not like they were built like that. They were bricked over. And I think this was the most concerning thing for me is, so we shot in the basement of the house, and in the basement of the house, there is a staircase that goes up, and then you can see kind of a modern brickwork that's literally bricked up a quarter of the house. You can't get into it, and they've gone through a lot of effort to brick that part of it up. In one of the scenes that I wanted to shoot in, which we ended up not being able to shoot in because everyone that went into it got ill. And that's where I started to get convinced maybe this was some sort of mold or gas or something like that. There was a small window, that's all I can say, with an H over it. And I asked my assistant, I want to know what's on the other side of that. And he broke in the wall, and you can see it online. It was pretty ridiculous. It was a room, and inside this room there's an altar, and inside the altar there's candles and there's other things like that. But they were all closed off. We tried to ask the caretaker of the house, like, why? What is this thing? And he refused to talk about it.
He was just evasive.
He wouldn't give us any information about it. It was an interesting thing, and still to this day, I mean, it's 10 years later, I still look back at some of that, and I was like, it was the most uncomfortable I've ever been. I have funny kind of side stories. We leave Spain, and I go back, and I'm editing in Los Angeles, and I had the coolest editor. The editor edited Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, cool.
He was the assistant editor on The Shining. So he worked with Stanley Kubrick, and this guy is like an old school dude. And one day he calls me in, and he goes, "Hey, can you, what is this?" And he shows me footage, and it's a guy sitting on the edge of the bed, and he is doing a monologue, and he's very kind of quiet, and he's whispering, but in the corner of this, spatially, he's sitting there, you hear somebody yelling in a language that I don't know what the hell it was, into it, but no one references it. You don't hear me yell cut, and the guy continues on with his monologue. So my first thing is, that doesn't make sense. That's impossible because it was so loud that we would have called cut, but no one heard it there. So I write that off as a corrupted audio file. I'm like, okay, there's something weird here. This is a corrupted audio file. But then there were other anomalies in the footage. The one that it's so subtle, and if you see it, you might just kind of blow it off and be like, that's nothing. But to me, it was really upsetting. There's a shot, and you can pull this and put it on the screen now for YouTube. There's a shot where they're standing on the beach, and behind them you can see the house. And in the house, there are these 3 large picturesque windows, but the curtains were on the outside, not the inside, and they're wooden. And so to open one of these things, you have to be inside the house and on a pulley system, and you have to use both hands to pull it because they're heavy. Well, we shot in that room, and the curtains were broken. You could not open them, and so they had to remain shut. In this shot in the beach, they're in the foreground, and they're talking. All of a sudden, you see every window open behind them. Yeah, and it almost looked like a visual effect.
Whoa.
It did not open like that. We could not open them, and it would to make that happen. It would take 6 people because it took 2 people to do each one of the curtains. It would have had to have been coordinated to 6. No, again, I'm not saying that the crew wasn't screwing with me and saying let's screw with this guy, but to what point? It took me 5 months after we did it to me to even see it. So if I was being screwed with or punked, you thought that they would have laughed and done whatever.
Yeah.
But it was these subtle things throughout the footage.
Do you have any of that?
Yeah, that you can find that on YouTube. If you do 11 shutters, you can see it.
Okay, great.
It was funny when the DVD came out, the foreign sales company would not put it on there because they thought it was all staged. They said, there is no way we're going to pass this off as real. And it made me so angry because I'm like, it's not. It's all, we did not do that.
Yeah, but that's like a boy who cried wolf situation because you're also known for immersive horror.
Yeah.
You're someone who creates experiences using horror and to sort of blur the lines between what's real and what's fiction. So that would seem like something you would do.
I'll tell you, my wife, who was there with me during the time, she became worried because you talk about this idea you heard a lot in UFO is this cognitive dissonance, this coming to grips with something that just doesn't fit with your worldview. I didn't have time to process what was happening and what was going on with the crew quitting, getting sick, these weird injuries that were occurring on set, and what we were feeling and seeing. I was just such in a fog during that entire movie. It's just because it challenged everything. Like, I was like, there was just this presence in the house. So not only were we dealing with the UFO UMO thing, we're dealing with this presence in this. And then there is a story that goes with the original owners of the house that was eventually uncovered, which the previous owner of the house was in the middle of a divorce. They were sharing custody, and the daughter kind of stopped talking to the mother, just kind of disappeared. And every time the mother would reach back out to the owner of this house, the father, he would say she was gone. She's at school. She's on vacation. She's this. She's this. Eventually, the mother was done with the shenanigans. She wanted to see a daughter, and sent the police. And I'm going to mess up some of these details now, but the daughter had died, and the husband was a political figure, fearing that he was going to be blamed for it and thrown out of this political thing. He buried her body in the house. And I didn't. Again, it was one of these things. I was like, "That's not true. I do not believe that."
Sounds like an urban legend.
It sounds like a horror movie, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like something I would make. The details are far less dramatic than maybe you're putting it. The death and all that. But again, there's this house has a very sordid history. But it was kind of like my first really kind of awakening into my fascination with what goes on that we don't know about.
So this house ended up having potentially a murder or some type of death and some type of cover-up with this child in the basement, we would assume?
It was the basement.
And that's where you filmed?
We did film in the basement. Now, that's not what the door was. I told you there was a staircase that went to a door.
And that has nothing to do with where the body was found?
That has nothing to do with where the body was found. It's been, like I said, it's been almost 14 years now. I want to go back. And I recently looked up the address. I found a call sheet, and I found the address, and I looked it up, and it's still available to rent. And I've been in a lot of places. I was going to do a movie in the LaLaurie Mansion in New Orleans, which is a lot of people consider to be one of the most haunted. I'm telling you, it had nothing on this place in Barcelona.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Since going down this rabbit hole, I've been just completely consumed with all of this because it's, like you said, so fascinating. It covers so many facets. It goes from being, potentially real UFO sightings to, an elaborate hoax to now some type of almost meta religion that started.
Multiple cults started off this.
Cults, religions, a lot of, and by the way, a lot of non-violent,
most are non-violent.
When we say cults, we don't say they're drinking Kool-Aid and they're all having sex parties. That some of it maybe, but there's
the Edelweiss. Yes, they did. But
the branding and the sex stuff, potentially. But for the most part, these were just gatherings of people who believed in the word of UMO because it made a lot of sense. And ironically enough, after reading some of it, this is exactly what they wanted to avoid. The Umites.
Yeah.
They wrote in their papers specifically, do not take this as the word because we don't want to shift your culture into ours. We're just here to observe.